So let's review the scope of the private accessibility again. So if I try to use the calculate circumference inside main, which is not the same class, I'm going to call circle dot calculate. I should not be able to access to that. So it's going to be an error that they don't know what it is. But if I call the get circumference, we'll call the private. Private is allowed to do that inside the same class. And to access to that get circumference are already public. Then I should be able to do so, right? Or I have to change this scope to public. Then this should be able to access, no errors. But there's no reason why we want to change it to public, because this is only the method to help get circumference. Then it should private to this class. So sometimes we have that type of methods. So that's why that is scope. Also, even it resides in the same package, you should not be able to access to the circle driver.java. Even it resides in the same package of the circle class, it's still an error because it's private, only private to that class. Alright, so if we happen to use the get circumference right here, when we run the program, it should return the circumference of the radius 100 for the circle. And for small circle, we can do the same, get the circumference, but call the instance. Now get radius is not a static method, so this get radius will tie to its own instance, like small circle itself in this case, which is the same as the get circumference. So it should return its own radius and its own circumference because they are non-static methods. We also have getter and setter methods that used to read and modify the private properties. So let's talk about this. Like we start to see get radius, so these are getters. Set radius, this is setters. Like it used set radius to modify the properties. Properties is the radius. Properties are the data fields of the circle. So in this case, we mean that we want them to be private. So actually, we don't want to leave as default. That's why I said we like to use get and setter to modify the private properties. So this property should be private. We don't want to leave them as default. So, and then we have getter and setters for that. So now for statics, normally we just leave it as it is, default. And we just try to reorganize the code a little bit, like this way. So when we make the private modifiers to restrict access to the properties and to the methods, like this, properties, radius, and to the methods like private calculate circumference. when we make private modifier restrict access within a class, the default modifier restrict access to within a package, right? The default modifiers, like we talk about, like pi, those are default modifiers within the package, and the public modifiers enables unrestricted access. So that means if in the public there are no restrictions, you can access them anywhere inside the same project. Even in different projects, if you can import them, you can access them to different projects. An object cannot access its private members. Of course, because private to the class, like Redis. If object named circle try to access Redis, you can't, because it's private to the class. It's okay if the object is declared in its own class. Like if you declare object in its own class, then you should be able to access c.x like that. C equals name C. But if you declare outside of class, you should not be able to access c.x or c.convert. Those are privates. If it's in the same class, it's okay. And why data field should be private? We come back again that we're about to talk about. We said we use set and getters to access the data fields or the properties. They call data fields, properties, attributes. They all refer to this variables inside the circle here, the Redis. Why? Why private? Why not make it public? One reason is to protect the data. Second, to make code easy to maintain. This is called data field encapsulation. This is the concept of encapsulation, one of the concepts of object-oriented programming. Redis. In UML diagram, we use -sign to indicate the private modifiers. Number of objects. So this is a static with the underline here. Like count, we make it private modifier now. Alright, so get number of objects. This is statics. Underline are statics. Minus are private. Plus are public in UML diagram. And you see this on your test. You have to draw a UML diagram. And you need to know these symbols. If you see this in the test to ask you to draw the UML diagram, you can pretty much just, in the text area, you can just type in the format. You don't have to worry about the structure of the table or lines. But make sure you have minus for private, plus for public, colon, name of the data field first, colon, and then type. The constructor doesn't have type, but when you refer constructor and method, you have to have the bracket. And again, the parameters has to have the name first and then type, and then just do the new line for the list of the methods. The name first of the method, and the type method also have type when it returns. Make sure it's colon and type. Which, if you set Redis, the name of the method first, and then the parameter name and the type of the parameter, and then colon type of the methods. So make sure you have to do it this way. So you have to construct it correctly in order to get a full score on the test. So that's the format, and finish the rest. Now, Encapsulation. Again, this is a concept that you isolate the data fields to private to the circle class. Then other classes not have direct access to the data field to change the values. To change the value, have to change it through the setters, set radius, or get the values to get radius. So that's the concept to protect the data and make it easy to maintain. Passing objects to methods. So we can pass the object by values for primitive type and pass by reference for reference type. Look at an example. So we have the class name test pass object main methods. Instantiate object name myCircle and circle with private data fields is a class name. Pass 1 to that. Print areas. So we have print areas methods, which is creating here. Pass the circle as the parameters. So this is called pass the reference type. And we have the primitive type n equals to 5. So this is passed by values. So when we do myCircle.getRadius, so let's see what print areas does. So it's going to print the radius. It's going to do a loop. It's just the text radius area loop through the c.getRadius and c.getArea. So it's going to calculate the area with the radius of each circle, and it's set the radius of the circle of the get radius back and increment by 1. So as long as times is subtracting minus minus, so times mean if we want to loop this 5 times, so it's going to be 5 of this show up. So it's going to do increment the rest by 1 and keep finding errors. And pass the object by reference and pass the object by values. So let's look at the output. So when we do that, it's going to print 5 radius out, starting from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and with different areas. So form the pass by reference here. And n is 5. And once it's done, it's just print radius is pretty much just when you pass by reference, when there's a changes, it's also changed outside of, see that reference when it change. Even C and myCircle, there are different name, but it's referred to the same by reference object. So when we get the radius, still 6. But when you pass by values, you may see that n is 5, it's replaced n into times, this is passed by values, which is keep minus minus, is reduced that times to 0 already. But this n is still 5 because it's passed by values, n will never change, it's still 5 from here. But passed by reference, it's changed the radius inside, even its difference name of the variables is still instant variables is different, it's still change the radius. So that's the distinction between passed by values and passed by reference. In summary, passed by values, value n still stay the same, even it's being changed inside the method. But passed by reference, it will be changed when it's being changed in the method.